What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Fantasy Flex podcast from the Action Network and Fantasy Labs. I'm your host, Chris Raybon. This is your NFL Week 11 player projections episode. And as always, I'm joined by one of the most accurate player projectors and fantasy rankers in the game, the odds maker, Sean Kerner. Sean, what's going on?
I can't believe it's already Week 11, right? This season has been just absolutely flying, but having a blast. How about you?
Oh yeah, it's good to see Mike Williams come back from the dead last week.
Yeah. Hey, you asked me what was the most important trade, and I couldn't come up with anything. I said, like, what happened? Jonathan Mingo, and I was like, oh yeah, I guess Mike Williams going to the Steelers gives them another vertical option. It's actually low key, like making this offense even more explosive going forward, I think.
Yeah, Russell Wilson playing well. But we will get into our top fives at each position. Guys we're high and low on, and throw out a prop as well. But a quick reminder before we get started and talk all things NFL, Sean and I have teamed up with DraftKings, and they've got a new way to play fantasy basketball and win some serious cash prizes. It's called DraftKings Pick 6. Sean, you and I both love the association, so this is right up our alley. And here's how it works. You pick 2 to 6 NBA players and choose if they'll have more or less than of a stat, stuff like points, assists, rebounds, threes. It's peer-to-peer, so you lock in a lineup and compete against opponents for a shot at huge cash prizes. One of my favorite strategies is to go for less thans on star players. Sean, what about you?
Yeah, no, I love that strategy, and taking it a step further, just players that are maybe like on a heater where they've gone more than their number and say like 5 of the last 5 games, because you might see that projection inflated a bit. And, everyone's going to be on their more than. So there might be value on the less than. And you're going to have a unique, pick because not as many people are going to be on it. So in this format, it gives you even more leverage.
Love it. All right. So a reminder, if you all listening want to play too, all you have to do is download the DraftKings Pick 6 app. And right now, new customers can play $5 on their first pick set and get $50 in Pick 6 credits. You just download the DraftKings Pick 6 app and use promo code FLEX6 at signup. That's FLEX and the number 6 at signup. All right, let's get into our NFL player projections for Week 11. Sean, who do you have in the top 5 at quarterback for this week?
Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, Brock Purdy, and Jaden Daniels.
Yep, I got Lamar, Hurts, Purdy number 3, Allen 4, and Jaden Daniels. So same top 5. I think there's pretty clear demarcation there. Who are you high
on? Geno Smith at the Niners this week, coming back from his bye. So I'm right back in the mid-range QB1 mix, coming off a massive 363-yard, 3 touchdowns, 3-pick game against the Rams in Week 9. And again, leagues that dock, minus 1 point for an interception really doesn't faze me when it comes to Geno, because those interceptions just lead him to, throwing more, where he can make up for that and more. So this is a game where it's probably going to be a pass-heavy game plan either way at San Francisco. And he might be getting DK Metcalf back this week, which is huge. Jackson Smith-Njigba is in the middle of his breakout, I believe. So that's just elevating Geno's ceiling even more. And Geno's been, tapping into his rushing upside a lot this year. So I just think he's a very high floor, high ceiling player right now. Plus, this is a great matchup. So he opens the week as my QB6.
Yeah, I like it. Geno, if they're going to do one thing in Seattle, they're going to throw the football. That's what they've been doing all year long. Just one of the highest pass rates over expectation in the league. I'm going with Bo Nix. He is inside my top 10. He's the ECR QB12 this week. He's a QB9 on the season, and 10 touchdowns, throwing 4 more rushing. He caught one. He's only got 6 interceptions, not taking a ton of sacks either. So being able to limit the negative plays, now he gets a matchup against the Atlanta Falcons. And we've really seen Bo Nix have success unless it's been like a really tough matchup. So I like Bo Nix to keep it going here. I mentioned him in our waivers pod as well. He should not be available in in half the leagues. But yeah, he's a top 10 quarterback for me this week against Atlanta. All right, who are you low on at QB for week number 11?
I'm low on CJ Stroud. Looks like ECR, I think, has him back in the top 12, which, he might be. It sounds like he's getting Nico back this week finally. So that's obviously great for Stroud's short-term and long-term value. But this is a matchup against the Cowboys. They probably won't have to throw much. The Texans probably going to get off to an early lead here and just lean on the run game and lean on their defense, which, as you mentioned earlier, is just no joke. This is a very good defense. I can't see how Dallas is going to put up too many points against them and really force Stroud to throw much. So he might have a very efficient game here, but again, the volume just might not be here to put him back into the QB mix this week. But, long term, he'll be there again with Nico back and, Tank Dell's still there. So like his upside going forward. But again, this week, he's just outside my QB1 range and opens week as my QB14.
Yeah, Stroud, it's been a struggle for him this year. I think the play calling is not helping, and just the defense is better. Guys have been hurt, so you don't really know what you're going to get from him week to week, this year. So, yeah, it's better to lower expectations, unfortunately. I'm low on Kirk Cousins this week at Denver. Tough matchup. Denver's number 8 in pass defense DVOA. They're allowing the 8th fewest fantasy points per game to quarterbacks, and Kirk Cousins, we know against Tampa Bay, he's going to light it up. 8 touchdowns in the 2 games against Tampa Bay, but just 9 touchdowns in his other 8 starts. So now he's going on the road outdoors against a tough Denver defense. He's outside of my top 20 this week, even though he did throw for 300 last week. No touchdowns, though.
Did you see his rushing prop was back up at 1.5?
Oh, no, I
this
missed
week
that.
we need to have an alert set up. We need to let the product team alert set up for both of us. Like, just let us know if books open or have or offer his rushing prop anything above a half. But someone alerted me of that in the Discord. I said, "Oh, that is an autoplay." So we hit that. It was just like minus 120. They were just floating 1.5. So the easiest bet you can make right now, in my opinion.
Yeah, no carries for no yards last week. And yeah, he's gotten over a half a yard once in his 10 starts this year.
And he blew by it by 15 yards.
That was the scramble game. All right, quarterback prop. Where are you going, week 11?
Okay, so Jared Goff, his passing yard projection against the Jaguars. I think this is a very tricky one. I'm just going to set my number and then we could talk about it. But I'm going to go with 225.5 passing yards.
I'll go over. I'll go over that one. I still have him. In the high 240s. It's matchup against Jacksonville. I mean, it was really odd for the Vikings last week, but that was in Jacksonville. Probably indoor team, probably not used to playing in the humidity, and it was just a slog of a game. But Detroit back at home, Goff coming off the 5 picks. Jameson Williams is back. I know Laporte is dealing with an injury, but you got St. Brown. You got the big play guy in Williams. So yeah, I think he ends up clearing it. But it's tough because you're right. He could just not have to throw a ton in this matchup, especially if Mac Jones makes another start. But yeah, I still have him to be highly efficient. Don't think this is another 5-pick week. So I'll go
it's a very tricky projection. Obviously, the most important one for fantasy, but I think for like betting purposes, like his pass attempt and his completion prop, I'm curious to see where those are. Those have been just a moneymaker, just taking the under. This is one of those games. He'll probably complete 13 passes and throw for 250 yards. Right. I just think the way to fade him in this matchup, especially, is maybe just take either under completions or yards. Once they come out, I'll have a better idea which one. But like, they're probably not going to throw much, and he's going to be extremely efficient. So it kind of just lowers his overall, volume that way.
Yeah, absolutely. He's been tricky, but yeah, I still have him as where do you have him ranked this week? Is he inside your QB1 for you, or?
Well, not QB1 overall, but I got him QB13, like extremely, extremely efficient. Now, if Monty and Gibbs, vulture these like short yardage touchdowns, he's screwed. But I think he'd get a long JMO touchdown here, or things like that. So I think if you have him, you got to roll with him. This is such a good matchup. You got to play him, but just don't be surprised if he just doesn't have to throw much. So he's a very tricky projection this week. That's why I definitely wanted this to be the prop we talk about. But yeah, it's a tough call. Where do you have him ranked?
QB9 to open the week. So
yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Would you rather play him or Bo Nix?
I got Bo Nix at QB7. So Bo Nix.
Yeah.
But it's
higher floor. Yeah.
Yeah, the rushing I think helps with Nix. All right, let's go to running back. Who do you got in the top 5 for week 11?
Oh, let's see. This is going to be new for me. Alvin Kamara, number 1, and then Christian McCaffrey back inside my top 5. And then I got Devon Achane, Saquon Barkley, and Joe Mixon.
Yeah, I got McCaffrey number 1, Mixon number 2, Kyren Williams, Alvin Kamara, and Saquon.
Nice.
Who are you high on at running back?
Tyjae Spears, despite the tougher matchup here against the Vikings, but when he was out for those three games, Tony Pollard was a true workhorse. Despite being injured, he's been dealing with a foot injury for a couple weeks now, and the coaching staff even hinted we got to limit his touches somewhat. And sure enough, getting Spears back really helped out with that. And we got to remember, heading into the season, we expected this to be, closer to 50-50 backfield. And that's kind of what it was last week with Spears returning, really just dominating the passing down work. So I think in a spot like this where the Titans will surely be in a trailing game script, that does set up better for Spears. Could be a nice safety valve for Will Levis here against the Vikings. I don't know how he's going to handle this for his defense. So I think getting some quick dump offs to Spears would make a ton of sense. But either way, I think he's back in that RB3 flex mix right now, and is my RB32 to open the week.
For me, it's Chase Brown, another guy with a tough matchup, but he's inside my top 10 against the Chargers. ECR is RB16, but he had 22 touches for 94 yards against the Ravens in a tough matchup. He's had a few extra days to get right, so I think he could see a big snap workload again. And he played 87% of the snaps against Baltimore, and that was only on 3 days rest. So now he's got 10 days rest. I think he continues to play a ton of snaps. They got Khalil Herbert behind him and Gary Brightwell, I guess, and Travion. So not much there that I think they want to give the ball to and give meaningful snaps to. So I think keep riding the Chase Brown train.
Yep.
All right, who are you low on at running back, week 11?
Raheem Mostert, despite, a great matchup here at home against the Raiders, but I don't know if we could trust him after last night where Jalen Wright was really operating as the number 2 back. Mostert didn't even see a single carry. Instead, he was operating as the receiving back, which is kind of a bizarre turn of events. And it's a shame because with Tua back under center, we thought, Mostert might be a nice RB3 flex option. He did have that 2 touchdown game a few weeks ago against Cardinals when Tua did return. But right now, you just cannot trust him with Jalen Wright, operating as the number 2 back, and Achane, clearly the lead back in this offense right now. So he opens the week as my RB41. And, long term, he might need Achane and Wright to get hurt to really be trusted. So his stock really took a hit last night. Maybe you hang on him for one more week just to see if this is just a fluky game for him. But either way, he has been moving down a ton in my rankings this week.
Yeah, I think it was only a matter of time before Jalen Wright became more and more involved. And it's just tough with the 3-man backfields. And I have a similar situation for a guy I'm down on. That's Javonte Williams. He's still, top 36 running back in ECR. I think he's another guy we just can't trust. He only had 3 touches last week for 7 yards, played 29% of the snaps. Now, Denver was leading for most of that game, but still, if you can't trust him in, as an 8-point dog against Kansas City, or 7, whatever it was, 7.5, it's going to be tough to trust him going forward. Estime was the guy who got the early down work. Jaleel McLaughlin's still involved. So Javonte he's going to get passing down snaps, but he's also going to pass block on a lot of those snaps. So really just not an ideal situation for Javonte Williams, who's just been struggling with the efficiency ever since, his injury a couple years ago. So low on Javonte this week. All right, let's see. Running back prop. Let's go with Raheem Mostert, actually. That's nice. A really tough one. I'm going to go rushing and receiving yards over under 22.5.
Ooh, that's a good line. I got it like right around 24, 25. I'm going to say over, and I hate it. I hate that I'm taking the over, but that nice. Is a great line. I think he'll see a couple of carries this week. It is the Raiders. I'm kicking myself. I was thinking about taking his rush attempt under. Could you imagine how fun that would be? I had Javonte's under 10.5 rush attempts. That was fun. But I noticed that Mostert, he had like 12 carries a week before, but he was only in on like 13 plays. So there was like over 90% run rate. I was like, no way they keep that up. But that's a good line. I think he does see a few attempts this week. But that's probably going to be his prop that books. If they offer a prop, that'll probably be it. And I hate to do it, but I'm going to be on the over here.
All right, let's go to wide receiver, week 11. Who's in your top 5?
Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, and Amon-Ra St. Brown.
I got Chase, Amon-Ra, Jefferson, A.J. Brown, and Cooper Kupp. Who are you high on at wide receiver, week 11?
Once again, I'm high on Juwan Jennings at home against the Seahawks here. Looked great. He finally returned from his hip injury. I figured the bye week would get him closer to 100%, but boy, oh boy, he returned to the Brandon Ayuk role. He lined up as the main X receiver. Shanahan even said that's the plan going forward. So he erupted for 7 catches, 93 yards. And the role is massive because it led him to a 92% routes run rate as well. Typically he'd max out 60-70% routes run rate because the Niners are a team that use 3 wide receiver sets at a fairly low rate compared to league average. So the fact that he's now in on non-3 wide receiver sets means he's out there pretty much every snap. Brock Purdy's playing well. They're throwing it a ton. So I think he's a wide receiver 2 option with this role going forward. And this week opens up as my wide receiver 19.
Yeah, Juwan Jennings, he's great on third down. It almost makes you think, like, maybe they didn't have to sign Ayuk to that big contract after all. Devo Jennings, Pearsall might be enough to get it done. Yeah. And, of course, Kittle's and McCaffrey. So, yeah, it's very interesting, but I guess they have a wealth of riches once Ayuk comes back. I'm high on Quentin Johnson this week. He is ECR wide receiver 40. He's a top 36 guy for me this week. He was well over 90% in his route rate. That's something that we haven't seen much from him this year. He's usually around 70-75%, but this was his second game back from injury. So it was good to see that go up, and didn't do much volume wise, but did get a touchdown. And this is a game with the Bengals as the opponent that it's one of the few games where you can look at it going in and say, all right, the Chargers might actually have to throw some. Their defense has been so good, but as we've seen, you're not going to slow down Joe Burrow. And so I think on the other side, you're going to see a lot of throwing for the Chargers, who have been, as you mentioned in our waivers pod, they have been throwing more anyway. So I think this could be a high volume game for him. And looks like he's going to be out there for every snap now. You had DJ Chark back and still didn't make a difference in Johnston's playing time. So like him this week and going forward as well. All right, who are you low on at wide receiver for week 11, Sean?
Jordan Addison at Tennessee, coming off a disappointing 2-catch, 25-yard game in what should have been a great matchup against the Jaguars. And I figured his target would certainly take a hit with TJ Hawkinson back in action, and his role's only expanding, which it did last week. But Josh Oliver's usage has gone up as well. They had him out there nearly 50% of the dropbacks, and he has just seen a massive target rate of 33% over the last 2 games. So that's really taking away from Addison as well. And, he's got Justin Jefferson to deal with on the other side. So that's just really lowering Addison's projection for me. And he still has the talent, the upside to maybe make a splash play or two. But his floor is very, very low right now. So you really can't trust him in your lineup. So, yeah, he opens the week as my wide receiver 50.
Yeah, Oliver is just where did he come from? It's like Hawkinson gets back and it's Oliver that's putting up numbers too. So yeah, that's it's not great for Addison. It's not great for Jalen Naylor either. I'm on Rashad Bateman. He is the ECR wide receiver 45. I just don't think we should trust him. I know he's had some good games this year, had a good one on Thursday night with 6 catches, 54 yards, and a touchdown, but his route rate did drop to 82%. And going forward, we just don't know when Deontay Johnson is going to see a spike. That could cut into Bateman because it looks like they're still going to use Aguilar. Tywin Wallace had a good game. And then you might get Isaiah Likely back at some point too. So there's just a lot of mouths to feed on this Raven offense. And there's some weeks where they just end up not really throwing it that much, period. So you can't even look at, a matchup against Cincinnati and say, okay, that's going to happen every week. Now you're going up against the Steelers, which tends to play Lamar really good and really well, in the passing game. So not a week that I want to be looking at Rashad Bateman. We got to kind of see where he ends up in terms of playing time as Deontay's snaps increase.
Yeah, and it's a revenge game for Deontay. So,
oh yeah, already.
If there were time to get him going, this would be it.
All right, wide receiver prop week 11. Where are you going?
I've been getting some questions about this guy already. Open the week, people are all excited about our week 11 projections on Tuesday morning. But been getting asked about this guy, DeAndre Hopkins. Let's set a line for him. Big game here against the Bills. So I'm going to set his line at 57.5 receiving yards.
I will go under that. I have him right around 55. It's a good line. But he still hasn't been getting that true wide receiver one playing time yet. Now, that could change at any time, but given his age, and he's kind of been 70% route rate or below, whether he's been on the Titans, the Chiefs, hasn't really mattered. So that might just be the new normal for him. He could still produce on that kind of abbreviated snap count because he's really good, and they're kind of looking for him when he's on the field. But I think that's a number where you want a guy that's going to be on the field 90% of the time, or you're going to get a lot of variance, and he probably goes under more often than not. So yeah, I'm gonna go under 57.5 for Hop.
I bet that his line will be very close to that.
Yeah, I think so too. All right, tight end week 11, Sean. Who you got in the top 5?
Travis Kelce, Brock Bowers, Evan Ingram, George Kittle, and Taysom Hill.
Ooh, nice. I got Kelce, Kittle, Bowers, David Njoku, and Evan Ingram. So Taysom's he's right there though. He's pushing for that top 5 spot. Who you high on?
I'm high on Will Dissly. Opens the week as my tight end 13. I talked about him on the waivers pod, but he's just really become the lead tight end for the Chargers. And despite Hayden Hurst returning to action a couple weeks ago, still maintaining that 70% routes run rate. Has seen a 27% target rate over the last 4 games. So he's caught 4 more balls in 4 of the last 5. And at the tight end position, what more can you ask for, really? So, Justin Herbert playing well. This is a matchup against the Bengals, too, where they might be forced to throw even more. So love his upside here. Great week to add him because, we got some really good tight ends out this week. Trey McBride, Cade Otton are on bye. Dalton Kincaid and Sam Laporta are banged up. Who knows if they're going to play? So Will Dissly could be a very sneaky, nearly free 1-week rental if you can get him this week.
Yeah, man, he's taken over. That it's been a couple of teams. It's been the Chargers, both LA teams. Will Dissly's taken over as the tight end 1 for Hayden Hurst, and Davis Allen's taken over as the tight end 1 for Colby Parkinson for the Rams. So if you're playing SoFi, your job is just not secure.
remember like it was like a couple seasons in a row, I think, when Russell Wilson was on the Seahawks, where Dissly would open up the season is like a top 10 tight end and then get hurt. He's flashed upside in the past. I forgot about that, but he has been, solid anytime he's been given the opportunity.
I believe it was his rookie year. He had a long touchdown or 2 or 3. Early on,
and he's a great blocker. Just really good overall, solid tight end.
Yeah, he had a 66-yarder his rookie year, 2 touchdowns on 8 catches, and then he got hurt. Hasn't had anything even 40 plus since, but he looks pretty reliable. And like we keep saying, this is a good matchup for the Chargers to finally throw it around a little more. I'm high on Taysom Hill. We talked about him. Seem to talk about him every week now, but he's out here. He's usually getting at least 4 carries. He caught 2 passes for 36 yards last week. He's become more involved in the pass game, and they really have no choice because, Chris Olave is in the concussion protocol. Shaheed's out for the year. You have, this kind of revolving door at receiver. Nothing much behind Alvin Kamara at running back. Jamal Williams has been banged up as well. So Taysom Hill, I think he's going to continue to see a high snap count in the passing game. And last week he had a season high 63% route rate against the Falcons. So going up against Cleveland, not as easy of a matchup here, but the fact that he's been on the field that much in the passing game and he's always getting at least 4 carries or so, red zone as well, just gives him a lot of different ways to have upside. All right, who you low on at tight end?
Kyle Pitts at Denver, and it's really the same old story with Pitts. He's playing well. His usage is actually where we want it to be lately. But I have Bijan, Drake London, and Darnell Mooney all projected for 4+ receptions this week, despite the tough matchup. It just makes it tougher for Pitts to offer a really solid floor for you. So he opens week as my tight end 15. You probably still have to roll with him. Just given his upside. Same thing with Taysom Hill. You have to play him if you have him because he just has massive upside, and this is a very low-scoring position. So, probably still want to roll with Pitts, but just got to lower expectations. And, again, the tight end position is one where we've seen Taysom Hill really emerge as a solid top 10 option. So I play him over Kyle Pitts. And then stud tight ends like TJ Hawkinson, Mark Andrews are back in the mix. Even Dallas Goedert's back and is in the mix. So, it just kind of bumped Kyle Pitts down to my ranks to open the week. I am assuming that, Dalton Kincaid and Sam Laporta are going to suit up this week. So if either one of those guys are ruled out, Pitts will rise up my ranks. But as of now, he's my tight end 15.
Yeah, down on Pitts as well. And I think another overlooked factor, in this matchup is Denver likes to play man coverage. That usually is not a great thing for tight ends. Now, Pitts does have the talent to beat man coverage, but it hasn't happened for him this year in this scheme with Kirk Cousins. According to PFF, he's averaging under a yard per route against man coverage compared to over 2 yards per route against zone coverage. So just not really the matchup that you want to test him out either. So yeah, I'm low on Pitts as well, unfortunately. All right, let's close it up with a prop for tight ends. Let's go with TJ Hawkinson versus Josh Oliver receiving yards.
Oh, okay.
There's
going to be a spread involved, I'm sure. But
yes. I'm going to make Hawkinson a 29.5 yard favorite.
It's a good line. You know what? I'm going to take the points here. I'm going to take the points. And where the hell was this when Hawkinson was out? We were dealing with Johnny Munt bullshit. I'm kind of pissed about that, but that's a good line. I have it closer to 25.
Yeah,
which is absurd. Yeah. But he kind of warrants it. Like this usage is scary good. I'm factoring a ton of regression. I don't think he's going to keep this up, and I still have it around 25. But that's a good line. I'm just thanking my lucky stars. I didn't hit that Oliver under 10.5 receiving yard prop.
Oh, I looked at it too.
Our tool is showing value. I'm like, I could see that, but last week was kind of concerning, and this week it even better. So curious to see where his prop is this week. Maybe this is the week to fade him. But there's no denying the usage has been there for him to put up some numbers.
Yeah, I have it around 25 too, but I think like there's more volatility with Oliver and probably some downside there. If they have to go more 3 wide or just choose to. So it's a really tricky one. But yeah, I think this is another one we have to set those alerts, see where his prop is at.
Well, yeah, I don't know if I want the over or under here. But yeah, that's a good point. And I would say, let me ask you, like, Hawkinson's playing time hasn't peaked yet, right? It's only going to go up. Like, where do you think his playing time is going to max out at, assuming he's fully healthy?
Typically, it maxes out around 80% routes, 85. First game 60, second game 71 for him. So, that's 10% increase, but 11% increase between the two. I could see another, 5 to 10% jump this week, but does that come at Oliver's expense, or does it come at like Jalen Naylor's expense, and they just go more two tight end? That remains to be seen. Darnold is having some difficulty with turnovers, so maybe you go heavier and try to rein him in a little bit. It's really tough, but I think Naylor is like unplayable now outside of DFS, and Addison is kind of dropping down the ranks as well. And then Hawkinson, I think ECR he's number 5, so that's another guy I'm actually low on. I still have him, kind of fringe tight end 1, because I don't know for sure if we can expect him to completely just erase Oliver from the equation, which at this point kind of needs. So it's a tricky situation. Unfortunately, we just have to continue watching. But this is one of the reasons I say, like all these guys, coming back from injury mid-year, it's not always the greatest pick. Yeah. I mean, he had a good game last week, but still some questions, and Jonathan Brooks still hasn't played a game. Chubb has been So it's been tough for some of those guys.
Yeah, well, Naylor's not a play anymore unless you give him out as a dart throw on.
I haven't had some success with that. Be sure to check out our fantasy DFS pod here on this channel. But I think that is going to wrap it up for us here, our Week 11 player projections episode here on the Fantasy Flex. Be sure to subscribe to the Fantasy Flex podcast so you don't miss an episode all season long. FantasyLabs.com for all of our fantasy football content. You can find Sean on X at @_oddsmaker. I'm at Chris Raybon. We're at those same handles on the free award-winning Action Network app. Until next time, let's get this money.